This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is a show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. And as a reminder, I'm here to help you understand your dreams. So if you have a dream that's got you stumped, email me at debbie@dreampowerradio.com. I can help you interpret your dream or answer any general questions you may have about dreams. So again, you can email me at debbie@dreampowerradio.com. Well, the other day, I was on a tour at a National Historic Site. And as I waited in line, I looked around and I saw the same thing. A crowd of people staring at their phones instead of interacting with the people around them, or even looking up at the gorgeous grounds of the site. I wish I could say this was unusual. But sadly, it's not. What a whole lot of these people don't understand is that this non-connection with our surroundings has a cost. It affects us internally on a subconscious level, making us feel incomplete, powerless, and isolated from the world around us. Well, I wouldn't be mentioning this if I didn't also believe there was a solution. I mean, after all, this is a show about living your dream life. So it is possible to reclaim your power and reconnect yourself with who you really are and who you're meant to be. My guest today has been helping women do this for years. Heatherash Amara is a visionary dedicated to teaching women how to find their authentic, creative, and wonderfully unique selves. She's the author of many books, including her latest, The Warrior Heart Practice. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Heatherash.
Thanks so much, Debbie. So good to be here.
Great. Heatherash, you help women by your trainings, the Warrior Goddess trainings. And it seems to me that it may be a little bit of a contradiction. I mean, I feel warrior, I think of war, and goddess, I think of peace. But I know there's more to it than that. So tell me, what is a warrior goddess?
The warrior goddess are two types of energies that we need both of those energies in the right mix. The warrior energy is about focus, clarity, commitment, and 100% dedication. And the goddess energy is about opening, it's about creativity, flow, and really learning how to be with what is arising. We live in a culture right now that has excess of warrior. And that means that there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of push, there's a lot of force, there's a lot of control. And what we're learning how to do is find the balance for each of us as individuals so that we can bring that balance back into society. And what I found for a lot of women is that often either they're in excess of goddess energy or they're in excess of warrior. And so coming to balance is about really listening to how much warrior energy do you need and how much goddess energy do you need. And it's not about 50-50. It's about finding what's your balance of these two qualities.
So how do you find the balance?
It's really about getting to know yourself. Being intimate with yourself is how I think about it. A lot of us have learned how to abandon ourselves, and we abandon ourselves through comparison, through judgment, through thinking we should be somewhere else or someone else. And that creates a lot of suffering for women. So I think really one of the main issues we have as women right now is the ways that we compare ourselves to who we think we're supposed to be, to an image of perfection or to other people. And these are all forms of abandonment. And so bringing yourself back into alignment, finding your unique self is about the willingness, I'd say first and foremost, to slow down and learn how to be your own ally, learn how to be your own best friend. Many of us are super good at being our worst enemies. And so Warrior Goddess training is really about teaching women how to learn to ally with themselves and to use everything in our lives to benefit us, to support us, to help us grow, rather than using everything in our lives against ourselves to judge or punish ourselves.
I tell you, it's so true, because we so often beat ourselves up, or if we're the kind who are helpful, we help other people and don't ever think about helping ourselves. So this is what you're talking about, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And women are often incredible pleasers. So we tend to look outside of ourselves for what do we need to be to make other people happy or to fit in. And it's something that we're really reclaiming now, is our own authority, our own authenticity, our own sovereignty, to really learn what do we like, what works for us. And this isn't about being selfish. It isn't about, I'm going to take for myself. It's about being honest with ourselves, what's true for us, what our capacity is, where we can give, and where we also need to learn how to receive.
Very, very important. Well, your new book centers on what you call the warrior heart practice. So how does that work?
So excited about this new book. The Warrior Heart Practice is a simple process that I created that helps people get out of confusion into clarity and out of pain into peace. And the most suffering we create for ourselves is around the stories we tell, the stories that we build over our lifetimes. And those stories can be based on false agreements. I'm not smart enough. I'm always going to be rejected. I have to be a certain way. And so the process teaches people how to get out of story and how to start living in truth, and to know what is truth, what's my truth, and to honor other people's truths as well. And what most of us do is we often make a better story up and call that the truth. So this book really teaches you what is truth. And it's a process that helps you step out of the story so that you can look at it through different eyes and make a decision about how you want to be in relationship to it.
Now, my understanding is that you have set it up in 4 parts, like the 4 parts of the heart, which is why it's called the Warrior Heart Practice.
Yes, the heart has 4 chambers, and the Warrior Heart Practice also has these 4 chambers that are all important. They all work together. But what I found is that to create healing, we need to separate things out so that we can clean up the pieces before we bring them back together again. So the 4 chambers of the Warrior Heart Practice is, the first chamber is the feeling chamber. It's a really simple question. What am I feeling? What's the feeling sense? And because so many of us spend a tremendous amount of energy exiting our feelings, it's really critical that we learn how to turn and face and just sit and be with our feelings, separate from the story. So the second chamber is the story chamber. Once you've learned how to just be with your feelings, which is, I feel hurt, my belly's tight, I'm scared, those are the feelings. The story is, I can't believe this happened, this shouldn't have happened. The story is all the mental part of it. And when you do this process, you start by separating out the feeling from the story. And with the story chamber, you give yourself permission to really look at what exactly am I telling myself? What's the story that I'm telling myself? Without editing it, without trying to make it nicer, without trying to fix it again. So sit with the emotions, be with the feelings. And then what's the story? And a lot of times there's layers of the story. So the first layer we're telling ourselves is about the situation that's in front of us. But a lot of times that's only the surface. So it teaches us to go deeper into those layers. The third chamber is the truth. Again, how to learn the difference between story and truth. And the story is usually very complicated, and the truth is very simple. The truth is usually one sentence. And then the fourth chamber is the intent chamber. What do I want? What's my goal? Where do I want to put my energy? And the intent chamber is not, I want the people to be different, or I want this person to take different actions. The intent is, what do I want to change? And then what's so beautiful about this practice is that you then circle back. So you take your intent and the truth, you go back into the story chamber. And this is where everything shifts, because now you're able to look at the story that you're telling yourself through new eyes. And that we always complete the practice in the feeling chamber. What am I feeling? To close. Because we want to learn how to start guiding our lives more from being in touch with our feelings rather than just the story. So that's a very simple description of the Warrior Heart practice.
Right. Why do you feel that so many of us live our stories instead of trying to figure out what our truth is?
Because it's familiar. It's because what we're modeled is a lot around story. So I think about it this way. If you look at, like, I was raised on soap operas. Like, daytime TV was all about soap operas. And the number one ingredient in soap operas is drama. And now it's more reality TV, which is not really real. But again, the ingredient is drama, is story, is making things up. And so that becomes really familiar to us. And the truth is, our brain likes having a story. Our brain likes understanding. Even if the story hurts us, the brain feels better going, okay, I understand why this happened, even if your reason why it happened isn't true. So I'd say it's absolutely possible to start gearing ourselves towards truth, but it takes effort because it's something new.
And so many of us are just not even aware enough to realize that this is happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't realize how much story we're in until we start to step back and really look at, what am I thinking? Because so often it's almost like we're a fish swimming in water and we don't realize how toxic the water is, how toxic our thoughts are. Our thoughts are often incredibly negative, fear-driven, what I call disaster mind, looking at the past and looking at what went wrong in the past, looking at the future and looking at what might go wrong in the future. So it can be challenging to start to realize how negative the mind is. But it's something to then open up around, to get curious rather than use it to judge yourself even more.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to read a quote of yours. You say, when you let go of who you wish you were, you reclaim your power to be radiantly, magnetically, and creatively who you are. Why would you want to let go of who you wish you were?
When we're trying to be who we think we're supposed to be, we're constantly judging ourselves. So we create this image of perfection of, I'm supposed to be this person. And instead of actually living in the moment in relationship to who you are, you then start comparing yourself to who you think you're supposed to be. There's a difference between having a vision of who you'd like to become that you're actively working towards versus punishing yourself for being somebody that you're not. And that's what we're learning how to settle into, is be who you are now. You can have a desire of who you want to step into, what qualities you'd like to embody more. But you're doing that from loving who you are now, supporting who you are now, and then looking at, how do I step into those qualities, rather than rejecting who you are now in favor of somebody you think you should be. That causes so much suffering.
And so much of what we go through is suffering, and I'd say needless suffering because of it.
Yes, lots of needless suffering. Yeah. And again, we often, like you said before, we don't even realize that we're doing it to ourselves. It looks like it's the outside that's doing it. But there's really a dance of learning to take responsibility for your part in the creation of your life.
Mm-hmm. So
doesn't
true.
mean you have to be victimized or blame yourself or judge yourself for it, but to just start saying, okay, so how are my thoughts supporting me or not supporting me? And that's a really great question to start asking, is, how is this story that I'm telling myself supporting me or not supporting me? And that's really what the practice is about, is starting to look at our story through the eyes of truth.
Well, we're going to talk more about this, but we have to take a little break now. We're speaking with Heatherash Amara on Dream Power Radio, and we'll be right back. What do Thomas Jefferson, Elias Howe, and Paul McCartney have in common? They all understood the value of dreams, and as a result, the ideas, inventions, and creations from their dreams affect us to this day. What great ideas are you leaving on your pillow at night? Sign up for a complimentary consultation at my website, thedreamcoach.net, and discover why your dreams are a terrible thing to waste.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're speaking with the warrior goddess and author, Heatherash Amara. Heather, you've been trained in the Toltec traditions, and one of the mainstays of this work is creating the practice of unconditional love. Can you talk about what it means to have unconditional love and why that's different from what we would just say is love?
Yes, absolutely. What most of us talk about when we talk about love, what we're often talking about is conditional love, which is I will love you if. So if you behave a particular way, I'll love you. If you do what I want you to do, I'll love you. If I, to ourselves, if I just lose 10 more pounds, I'll love myself. Or if I just get the job that I should have, I'll love myself. And so we're putting conditions on love. Unconditional love means that you are learning how to love no matter what, and let that feeling sense of love permeate your entire being, and then you're sharing it. The beauty of starting to move towards unconditional love is that you're not shutting love off, turning it on and off based on what other people are doing or based on what you're doing. And that is hurtful, basically, because anytime you shut your love off towards somebody else, you're shutting it off towards yourself. You're closing down yourself. Now, there's a lot of confusion. People think, well, if I'm in unconditional love, that means I never make a boundary or I have to like everybody. And it's not true. Unconditional love means that you are present and you're really paying attention to where you put yourself, who you're interacting with. But you don't shut your love down. You don't punish somebody and say, okay, well, forget it. I'm, ending this relationship because you're a bad person. What you learn to do is say, this isn't working for me. I'm grateful for our time together, and I'm now going to end this relationship. You're remaining open to yourself and open to others, but you learn how to make really clear boundaries from that openness. What happens is you don't have to make other people or yourself right or wrong or good or bad. You're at choice where you want to put your energy. My teacher, Don Miguel Ruiz, used to always tell us that you can love everyone, but you don't have to like them. You don't have to go to lunch with them. And you can appreciate and be grateful and respectful for each human. But it doesn't mean that you have to like everything that they believe or agree with them. Mm-hmm. But you can still respect them as a human.
Well, sometimes the hardest person to have unconditional love with is with yourself. So how do you learn to have an unconditional love with yourself?
Willingness is really the key, is that you're willing to start transitioning from conditional to unconditional love with self. And that willingness means looking at how you love in the world and where you're able to love more fully. And that might be with your grandchild, that might be with your best friend, that might be with your dog, that you can look and go, oh yeah, okay, I do love, I know how to love. I know how to connect with other humans or with other animals. And so how do I bring that quality to myself? And so it's about looking at where you're being conditional with yourself and then reminding yourself what it would look like to really love, to really accept. And it just takes time to transition, because you think about how long that you've probably been being conditional with yourself. And I know that was my experience, is when I started really looking at this, I started recognizing first how incredibly conditional towards myself I was. And that was really painful to become aware. And witnessing is always the first step, is to start to step back and become aware of how we're in relationship with ourselves. What are our thoughts? How are we responding to other people? And so for me, it was becoming aware of where I was being conditional, of where I was shutting my love down, of where I was judging myself, of where I was comparing myself. And then in little incremental ways, starting to change my behavior, starting to change my thoughts. And it really is lots of baby steps over and over again. And looking at how would I treat my best friend, or how would I treat my dog in this moment, or how would I treat my grandkid? And that can help you go, oh, right, I'm not treating myself as an ally, I'm treating myself as an enemy. And when we don't judge ourselves for that, or beat ourselves up, or make ourselves wrong, but just take the data in and go, okay, so what little thing can I change now? What I found is that over time, you start to stabilize a new way of being in relationship with yourself. But often you can't even see it until one day you react to something and you realize you're reacting in a completely different way. My experience was I locked my keys in my car one day, and I heard this little voice that said, oh, sweetie, you locked your keys in your car. And I literally turned around and was like, who said that? Because that was so not my normal voice, what I was used to. I was used to the voice that was judgmental and like, how could you have done that? And instead, this very sweet voice came in. And that really shifted my life. So a lot of times there's a lot of work under the surface before we actually get to see the results. But it's so worth all of the little baby steps.
Oh, yeah.
To find that transformation.
And again, it all comes down to awareness, like really paying attention to all of these things and realizing that it doesn't have to be a giant leap. It can be little baby steps, because sometimes that's how it has to be.
And it is those daily choices, making different daily choices over and over again, that stabilizes a new way of being.
Okay, when you talk about being a warrior goddess, you're talking about creating a balance within yourself of whatever percentage of warrior versus goddess that works for you. But what happens when you get out of balance? How do you get yourself back into having that balance that you should have?
What we're looking for is essence, what I think of as your essential self, and that whatever mix of warrior goddess that is your nature. Because some of us are much more warrior oriented, some of us are much more goddess oriented, some of us are like more in the center of both of those qualities. And so to witness ourselves, to have that awareness that we've been talking about, of what does it feel like when I'm centered? What does it feel like when I'm peaceful? What does it feel like when I'm right in this moment? So that you have a kind of a marker to work with. And that you then start stepping back and watching yourself. There's a part of us that we want to really support in witnessing without judging ourselves as we interact in the world. And the truth is, we're going to be off balance. That's, one of the things I like teaching is that missiles are off target 9.5% of the time. And people always think of like they're always on target, but the truth is what they're doing is constantly adjusting. And so what we want to learn is to adjust, to go, oh, I'm a little bit off. Okay, what do I need now? And that self-intimacy allows us to stop and to ask ourselves, how can I support you? What do you need? How can I help you get on balance again? And in the beginning, when we are in relationship with ourselves from a place of judgment or from a place of conditional love, what happens is we often are off course. We don't realize we're off course because we're pushing or we're feeling victimized or we're out of balance, but we're going off balance without knowing what we're going for. And that when we realize we're off balance, then we usually get really upset with ourselves and then judge ourselves and then, poof, hit ourselves in a way. And we then go sailing off course a different direction. So the corrections are very long. So we're off, how many of us, I know I've had experiences where I've been off balance for years without realizing it, wrong job, wrong relationship. And then the course correction can be really cruel sometimes because we judge ourselves for being off course. But as you get to know yourself better and open, the adjustments become much more subtle because you start to realize right away, oh, wait, something doesn't feel right. What's going on? And then the adjustments are much more gentle. Okay, sweetie, what do we need? And I found that to be one of the best questions to stay balanced with ourselves is that question. Hi, sweetheart, what do you need? And not what do you need from other people? What do you need from yourself? How do you need to support yourself. What are you craving more of? And how do you craft that in a creative way in your life?
Mhm. And again, asking that question in a non-judgmental way, so you're not beating yourself up for not being, this what you would consider a perfect image of yourself.
And it takes practice, because often what happens is you watch yourself beating yourself and judging yourself for judging yourself. So we start this spiral of going against ourselves, basically. And it's learning, oh, I just judged myself. Okay, stop judging, come back. Where was I going? So I'm always a really big fan of helping people figure out what their intent is. What do they want in their life? And to recognize, if you want more love in your life, you want to figure out, how do you make that actionable, for example. So I want more love in my life. What does that actually mean? And then how do you move towards that? So if there's something that you want to create more in your life, to realize that when you state something that you want, you also have to get clear about, what would that look like? So sometimes people will say to me, well, I just want more love in my life. And I'll go, what do you mean? How do you make that actionable? How do you love more? And that might be, I'm going to make eye contact with people more, or I'm going to be more in gratitude for the people that I care about in my life and let them know about it. Or I'm going to practice loving myself in these ways, so that we have a plan. We have the intent of where we want to go in the feeling sense, but we also have an experiment, as I like to think about it, that we're going to run to help us get there, and that we're willing to be with ourselves in the long run, over time.
Oh, great. Okay, then I have to ask you this. What about the men? Is there a warrior god?
I think about it is that we're all in the process of balancing our warrior and our goddess. Part of why the world is so out of balance right now is we've lost touch with the divine feminine. And so the book Warrior Goddess Training was written specifically for women, but I also really encourage men to read it as well, because it's the same information. And I really believe that men also need to balance their goddess qualities as well. The new book that's coming out, Warrior Heart Practice, is for everybody. So that one was written for all genders. So it's a specific practice, whereas Warrior Goddess is more of a training. The Warrior Heart Practice is a very specific, do this to help untangle and create a lot more freedom for everybody.
Yeah, because it's so true. Men don't often realize that, they have that divine feminine inside of them, that they probably think, oh, they're not supposed to have it, but it's really, the quality that makes them more complete as well.
And that's so true. And we're learning how to come back into right relationship with the male, female, and it's not as divided as we could think it is. I definitely believe men and women do have there's different hormonal things. There's also different training that we get. And yet we're all wanting love. We're all wanting connection. We're all wanting intimacy. We're all wanting to be seen. And that's a universal human need that we're learning first to bring to ourselves, to learn how to really see ourselves, to learn how to really love ourselves, to learn how to really be present and share that out with others as well.
Okay, so Heatherash, I have one final question for you. How can people find out about the book and about your trainings and just about you?
I have a really beautiful website. So that's one of the main ways, heatherashamara.com. And you can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram at both Heatherash Amara.
Wonderful. Well, Heatherash, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today. We've been speaking with author and warrior goddess Heatherash Amara. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network. the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.